So today we're going to take a look at the Ultimate Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 1. This is the new printing that just came out. I got my copy. I've had nearly all of this run in single form, and now I have the Omni. This Omni is 1,000 pages. The list price is $125, and it's still available. I'll put some buy links down below if you haven't got your copy yet. This one has, like all of the newer Marvel omnibuses, the paper is a little thinner than what we've had in the past. And that's kind of a bummer, but seems to be the way it is right now. Maybe eventually they'll return to the thicker paper if the world ever normalizes again. I mean, that's probably as good an excuse as any, supply and issues and all that. But, I mean, it looks great. It actually feels fine. I flipped through this. I had already read the material, but I looked through every page, and I did a lot of scanning. I mean, I'm running those now, you'll see. So, I mean, I didn't really have any issues with it. The binding is good and strong. I wish the paper quality was a little better. It is super glossy. Some people prefer that. I could take that, take or leave that, but I wish the pages were a little thicker. But I am glad to have it reprinted finally, because I wasn't buying Omnis when the first printing came out, and I kind of was always a little bit miffed that I didn't get in on that. But it took me a while to come around for Omnis. I was old school single only for a very long time, so I'm glad we have it. So I'll talk about the creator some. Brian Michael Bendis. This was his first, certainly his first Marvel work. He had done a little bit of what you might call mainstream work at some of the indie publishers at Image and Caliber and a couple other little ones like that before he got this. But this was his big breakthrough at Marvel, and for many people, it was the first they'd ever heard of Brian Michael Bendis. It certainly was the first I'd heard of him. But like I said, he was an indie writer and an artist. A lot of people don't know that he is a very good artist as well, but he is sort of given that up for writing now, but with his success, who can blame him? I mean, he did, before he got Ultimate Spider-Man and started doing Marvel work, he was doing mostly crime stuff, such as Jinx and Goldfish and Torso. And then later, after Ultimate Spider-Man, massive success he had there, he did a lot of Marvel big event stuff, Avengers Disassembled, House of M, Secret Invasion, the stuff he did with Jessica Jones, Alias, and then later The Pulse, is some of my favorite comic book work of the modern age for sure. I mean, just some gut-wrenching emotional stuff, and he elevated, in my mind, he elevated what could happen in a Marvel mainstream superhero comic. In deep character work, like I said, emotional stuff. His dialogue is unparalleled, just awesome stuff. Of course, after Ultimate Spider-Man and Age of Ultron and all of those events books and the stuff he did with New Avengers and eventually he went on and he switched to DC. Now, I didn't follow him there because I'm just not much of a DC guy. Just I like Batman, I like Swamp Thing, I like Deadman. Just not a lot. Handful of properties there I like a lot, and the rest of them, just doesn't do it for me. But anyway, Mark Bagley's the artist on this, and since I skipped most of the '90s comic scene, this was really my first exposure to Mark Bagley's art. And I mean, I remember in '83, Jim Shooter had this Marvel tryout book he did. I remember seeing the ads in the comics that came out at the time, and I understand that Mark Bagley won the penciler portion of that. He got the top win on that, and I think that's how he broke in. I mean, I didn't know that time. I don't guess anybody knew him then, but he won that. And when he did start actually working for Marvel, he did Spider-Man and New Warriors and Thunderbolts, among other things. Most of that through the '90s, and I can't speak much to that, but that's what a lot of people know Mark Bagley from. Art Thibert inked pretty much every single issue in this Omni, and I was not familiar with his work, but he does a really good job here. This is some fully rendered stuff. It's just beautiful. His inks worked well over Bagley's pencils. I don't know much about Art Thibert's history and all that, but he did really good on this. I can tell you that. This collects the first 3 years or so of Ultimate Spider-Man. This is issues 1 through 39. It also has a half-issue special that came out. But, yeah, it's just straight through. It's great. Ultimate Spider-Man, for people who don't know, he started the entire Ultimate Marvel Universe. Kind of like how the Fantastic Four in 1961 started the classic Marvel Universe as we know it. Well, here they started with Spider-Man, and FF was added a little bit later. This updated the story for modern times. I mean, Spider-Man is, it's 60s. It's pretty dang old by today's standards. I mean, it's back there. The basic core plot and the origin, it all holds up well, but it sorely needed updating, and Marvel did it with this. It's just great. It feels, when we read it in 2000, when it came out, and my whole family, this was one of the first things that, as a family, we all read together. As these were coming out weekly, or monthly rather, my wife and Kristen, many of you know Kristen as Omnicat from the show she does with Omni Dog, or the Comic Slayer, or as a fangirl on Fangirl's Symbol. But she was right there with me, and in fact, she wanted me to get this she had heard about it somehow or another as it came out, from the first issue, and she kind of pressured me to get it, and I was like, I don't know, do we really need another Spider-Man? I understand, I like Spider-Man, but I don't really need another one, So I was being a little hard-headed. I took a little convincing, and by the time we started buying them monthly at the comic shop, I think it was probably at issue 8 or 9, or it might have been a little later than that. So we filled in with what we could, and they hadn't skyrocketed quite yet then. They were starting to. Number 1 was unattainable at that point. It was way up there, price-wise. But there was some little reprints that collected the first few issues in like a comic form, real thick comic. I forget what they were called. Ultimate Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, something like that is what it's called. We got that. So we filled in what we missed that way. I don't think we got a trade, but I got a few back issues, and I got that reprint book, and we were able to piece together the story, mostly. I did end up getting the big, oversized, giant Ultimate Spider-Man 1 through 13 deluxe oversized hardcover, but I got it at a really good price at the time, and that thing's worth a small fortune now, and I have since sold most of my singles, kept a few, especially the one I had autographed, but yeah, this was just a monumental thing that happened. And I think it kind of snuck up on a lot of people. They didn't expect it to be as great as it was, and as it is. It holds up well now, very well. But yeah, speaking of the great memories, this came out in 2000, so Kristen was maybe around 12 by the time we really started getting them together and reading them all and going every week to the comic shop and picking them up, and she was around 12 years old. And we all loved it. My wife loved it, and Kristen loved it, and I think Kristen read it with us in single form probably for the first year or so of that book, maybe a little past that, I'm not sure. It's a long time ago, but one of the great memories we have is the 2005 WizardWorld Convention in Chicago. We went to that, and that was probably my first real comic convention, at least of any size. I'd been to a few local things here and there, but nothing of that magnitude with all those creators there. It was wonderful. I was able to meet Bendis, Brian Michael Bendis. I'll show a picture of that. It's pretty blurry. This was before smartphones really, and I had a digital camera, and I handed it to some stranger in the line to take this shot of me and Bendis, and put my hand on his shoulder, and he didn't recoil, but I didn't ask first. I guess I should have, but I was so excited to see somebody I thought was such a great writer, and I still do. And he was nice, and he was friendly, and we chatted a bit, and I got a bunch of books signed. I'll run scans of those, so you can see that. But yeah, he was pretty great. And the reason I didn't have Kristen or my wife take the picture was because they were at that, I think, exactly the time uh, Brian Michael Bendis had a signing. There was a Kevin Smith thing. Yeah, yeah, we let Kristen hear that at that age. So I was a little iffy because he's pretty foul mouthed, but yeah, Kristen and my wife waited in that long line. I mean, I wanted to see that too, but I'd choose between seeing Kevin Smith talk for an hour or more, and he's pretty long winded, or stand in this line for an hour and a half or whatever to get Brian Michael Bendis to sign my book, something that is going to last forever. I mean, I'm going to hold on to forever. So I opted for that, and they went to see Kevin Smith. But mostly we stayed together, but we separated on that one. But it was a really good time. I'll put a link down below to a blog post I did when we went to see that. If you want to see what Kristen looked like, she's probably about 15, 16 years old at that point. There's some good stuff there. No surprise for anyone who's seen any of my other reviews. That this is a 10-star book for me. It's great. I mean, not only was it memories of a great time in our lives and with comic books and as a family, but the whole thing is just is great. I mean, it's a wholesome thing, and the characters, you just care about them a lot. It's just superb. One of the things that makes it as great as it is the consistency. This is Brian Michael Bendis writing, Mark Bagley penciling, Art Thibert inking the entire way, every single issue. So it's just that consistency from issue to issue, story to story, arc to arc. It's fabulous, and it's nice to see when that happens, because it really doesn't happen that often that character or creators stay together that long, and they did, and it was fantastic. In fact, I mean, we'd have to have probably 3 Omnis to get to that point, 3 or 4, but Bendis and Bagley broke the previous Marvel record for creators staying on a title consecutively, which used to be Stan Lee and Jack Kirby on the Fantastic Four. I think theirs went to, I want to say 102, issue 102, so 102 issues straight of Fantastic Four. And Bagley and Bendis went 111 before there was a artist change up. Brian Michael Bendis stayed on, but the art changed at that point. But in this book, it's just consistent all the way through. It's a real kick to see the modern interpretations of the old classic Spider-Man Rogues Gallery. You've got Doc Ock and Electro and just on and on and on. And man, their take on the Green Goblin is fantastic. It's just they actually made him almost a horror movie level villain. I mean, way beyond the demented Joker type character we see in the classic universe. Here in the Ultimate version, he actually physically manifests as a demonic goblin creature, and it's great. Yeah, you don't want to miss this. If you haven't read the Ultimate Spider-Man run, the original one by Bendis, pick this up, get it. It's still available. You owe it to yourself as a comic fan to experience this, I gotta say. But yeah, it's fantastic. So next week I'll be back Monday, April 18th, with my review of the Invincible Iron Man Bob Layton Artist Select Edition by IDW. This is a big volume, and it's really something. That's what it looks like. I'll see you then. Come back for more if you like this kind of content. The high resolution scans and me will be back.